Another really important frame to win over very quickly is who's in charge of the interaction. Now, we've already established that the person with more certainty and the person who's asking more questions is generally the person who's leading the dance. But there's another couple of really powerful things that you'll want to know that really help you solidify your control of the interaction and help you lead that customer to completing that sale. The first thing you really want to understand is what's called compliance rewarding. Now, compliance rewarding is very simple. If people say yes, give them a reward and they will say yes more. Well, how does it work? Well, it's the same as when you train a dog. And not to say that customers are dogs, don't make that assumption. I know we just talked about assumptions. But if you have a dog, when you want to train it to sit, well, you get some treats and then you put your hand over its head and say sit, and it'll plunk its little butt on the ground and you say yes and you give it a treat. Right? And so that puppy knows that when it does what you say, it will get rewarded. Well, sometimes you might give it a couple of treats, but eventually it does it enough times that you don't have to give it treats at all. That dog just gets used to establishing that behavior. That was actually figured out in an experiment called Pavlov's dog, where they actually would ring a bell, and every time they'd ring this bell, they would give dogs treats, these big Doberman dogs treats. Well, they did it enough times that they would ring the bell, and without even giving them treats, the dogs would be salivating. They'd have saliva hitting the ground. It'd be gross because they would be anticipating, without even realizing it, they'd be subconsciously anticipating that treat. Well, I know this sounds funny, but sales operates in a very similar way. If a customer gets rewarded every time they agree with you or every time that they do what you want, well, they're more likely, drastically more likely, to continue doing that because it makes them feel good. So not only are you establishing more control, but you're also giving the customer a better interaction, because every time you give them that reward, they get a little dopamine hit that says, yes, you did a good job. Just the same as that puppy does when you give it a treat. So this is really important. When a customer agrees with you, especially early on, you want to either raise the energy and say, yeah, great. Or even better, if you can do it without it seeming disingenuous, you want to give them a compliment. So, fantastic, you're the exact kind of person I want to talk to. Or, great, I'm glad I'm not talking to an idiot. Right? Giving a customer a compliment once they agree with you is a really easy way to make them want to agree with you more. So that if 3 times or so I've actually rewarded them saying yes, by the 4th time I say, awesome, I just grabbed whatever card you want to chuck it on, or I say, is that a Visa or a MasterCard? They go, it's a Visa. Because they're anticipating that they're going to get a reward without even wanting to. Now, I will warn you, this can be used for evil. This power that you're learning can be very manipulative. So please, I beg of you, do not use this for any sort of con artistry or misleading a customer, but it's a really powerful neurological way to make sure that customers are allowing you to have control of the interaction. Remember, we need to be serving these customers, because if they get buyer's remorse at the end, you're hurting you, you're hurting your business, and you're hurting that customer. It doesn't do them any favors. But really understanding how powerful compliance rewarding can be is a really useful skill you can have as a seller. And the earlier you can involve that, the better reactions you're going to get from that customer. A really important factor when it comes to not only controlling the conversation, but also really maximizing the execution of compliance rewarding is reaction time. Well, what do I mean by reaction time? Well, a lot of times in sales, you'll hear the phrase, you're too nice. Oh, I'm too nice, I'm being too nice, I'm not being pushy enough, or I'm not being assumptive enough. And that's not true, right? It's not about, you can be as nice as you want, but you're not too nice, you're too slow. Traditionally, how a sale will go, I'll say, hey, here with blank, 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 have you heard of us before? They go, yeah, I think my cousin went and did a bit of work with you guys. Well, he actually travels in the circus now, and he does the high wire stuff, which is great, but he was dating one of the strongman girls, and she could lift twice her body weight. And she's actually gone and lived in Jamaica for a while. And now the conversation has gone from here, where the pitch is, all the way over to Jamaica, and you have no idea how to get it back. Well, the secret is understanding how English language patterns work. And again, this can apply in various other languages. But if I ask them a question, especially a close-ended question, it's going to look like this. They're going to say, yes, full stop, blah, 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 or no, full stop, blah, blah, blah. Right? Well, with someone who's particularly extroverted or gregarious, someone who loves a chat, they're really hard to run a frame on. They're really hard to establish dominance in the conversation. Well, that reaction time is really important. What happens in the English language when we put a full stop or a period at the end of a sentence? We breathe in. That breath is the chance for you, without interrupting the customer, because again, you don't want to interrupt them, but this is the chance for you to take the conversation and continue it along the line of your pitch. This is really important. So I say, look, I'm sure you'd agree we can improve that. And they go, yeah, beautiful. Or they say, oh, look, let's say we use our no question example. It's like, you don't want to keep paying that much money, getting the poor results you're getting with your current provider, do you? And they go, no. Exactly, you're a smart guy. So, and again, you don't want to sound condescending, but you do want to reward that customer. But the reaction time is really powerful. Not only to stop the customer running away with the conversation, but also as part of really, really empowering the compliance reward system. Human beings are not that different from other animals. And traditionally speaking, when you're training an animal or training something of any kind, you've got about a half a second window where they will associate that reward with the action that they've done. That's why, if you ever look at how they train dolphins, this is actually very exciting. They use an underwater clicker. They use, those things that the bouncers and security guards use to count how many people go into a nightclub. Well, that's how they actually reward dolphins. Because the dolphins are so far away when they perform their double flip or whatever it may be, that there's no way they'd be able to get them fish in time for them to associate that with a treat. But when they land that flip or that trick or whatever they're doing, the trainer will give them a click or a couple of clicks that says, great, come swim over here and I'll give you a fish. And so they hear the click and then they swim. And so when they perform that trick, they get a click. Well, that's what we need to do with customers. The secret is great reaction time. The way that you empower your compliance rewarding, as well as run the frame so that you're in charge of the interaction, is quick reaction time. Do not wait. Don't interrupt them, but don't let them run away with the conversation.